in this video I'll try to talk about 20 things that are kind of general that you can include in your letter that will really make that letter of explanation, convincing for the visa officer. A letter where you explain to the visa officer why you meet the requirement, why they should consider you. And in Canada there is hardly a chance for you to actually do interviews, so see this as a potential to do interviews. There is not a one size fit all to write a letter of explanation. There are certain factors, depends if you're applying for a course base, if you have a scholarship, if you are going with a family, if you are going alone, but to give you a visa. So one of the first things you want to include is your full name, your address if possible. If you want to add your email address, that's fine. It's just like a contact information. They're not going to contact you anyway, but it just shows that you're real. And the second thing you want to include is your educational and your professional background, including all of the degrees that you've achieved. If you're applying for master's, state all your BSc. If you're applying for PhD, state your bachelor's and your master's. If you apply for a diploma and you already have a BSc, also state those ones as well. One of the next thing I want to add is the name and the location of the institution that you're applying to. This just shows the visa officer that okay, well, you actually know what they're doing and they know the location of the university. That some of these things sounds a bit too mundane and easy, but these are the things that it's a story, right? You want to add all of these things and at the end of the day be able to make story from it. So put the name, the location. If you're applying to Memorial, for example, I'm applying to Memorial University and I'm applying to the Department of Biochemistry. Another thing is add the duration of the program and the start date. I'm applying for a master's that is going to be starting in September of 2023 or January 2024. Any date you're starting, include the start date and the duration. And if it's a 2 years program, make sure you include that it's a 2 years, 1 year. If it's a PhD that is 4 to 5 years, make sure you include that. And then if you can also include the specific end date, if you're going to be graduating in 2 years and 1 year, also make sure you include that. Then the next thing you want to include is why did you choose Canada? I'm telling you with my notes, so I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Why did you choose Canada? There are a lot of other countries that you could have chosen, so why specifically did you choose Canada? And how is the program that you applied for actually aligned with your academic and your professional goals? So all of these have to explicitly be explained. And then also talk about your financial resources, right? So financial resources talks about your scholarship, your loans, your investment, anything you've received that is going to make your studying ability to pay, because you have to be able to convince them that you'll be able to pay your tuition. If you have a scholarship, talk about your scholarship. If you've personal savings, talk about your personal savings. If your mother, your parents sent you money, explain all of this and kind of talk about generally this is the amount that I have for all my studying. And then if you have your English certification done, that's also fine, and your French ability, especially if you are not from an English speaking country. So make sure you include demonstrated your English proficiency, that you've written your English test or some other French whatever, just to make sure that you're able to communicate in the specific program or province of interest. And if this is actually optional, if you have accommodation plans, you can also talk about it. If you'll be living on campus or off campus, even though you haven't booked a place yet, you can also just talk about it that, oh, I'll be getting an off-campus accommodation once my visa is approved, or I will be getting it. To me, I usually don't advise people to start worrying themselves about accommodation before they get visa. So make sure you get your visa before thinking about accommodation. And then the next thing you want to talk about is what is your plan after you have completed your studies, right? If you have completed your study in Canada, you have to talk about when you're coming or returning back home, what are some of the things that you plan to do in terms of employment, in terms of if you want to set up your business. This is actually an explanation of home ties, right? If you come back, what exactly are you going to do? If not, they're going to deny you on the fact that, oh, this person, when they're done with their program, they are not going to I'm not convinced that I'm going to leave Canada on the completion of their program. Then there are other, relevant information. For example, your relationship status, right? So if you have children, this is a good way to talk about. If you are not following, you talk about your children and your family, that, oh, my spouse and my children, they are back in my country, and I can leave them once I graduate from Canada, so I have to go meet them once I'm done. Okay, and if they are going to be accompanying you, if they're applying with them, also explain in detail why you think they should come with you. So this is on a personal basis, so I can't say why they are following, so make sure you explain in details why they are following, because generally the more people you include in your study permit application, kind of the chances are kind of lowering down. But if you play your cards well and really explain in detail, it should be fine. Another thing you want to talk about is also your employment status. So if you are currently employed, you may want to include information about your current job, and then how you plan to continue your employment while studying in Canada. If you're on a study leave, that's fine. If you are going to return back to that particular employment once you're done with your studies, also include that. Another thing you want to talk about is your travel history. If you've traveled before, also talk about that. And then if you haven't traveled before, which I know some people, well, travel history is not a very primary reason why they deny somebody, because if any other country don't give that person visa, how are they expected to travel, right? So it is not like a valid, like a primary reason why they should deny somebody. If you have it, fine. If you don't have, your state that you haven't had the opportunity to travel, that you've been working on all of these in order to help you to put yourself together to be able to travel. And then if there are any extenuating circumstances, something like medical or personal issues, not like a terminal issue, disease, but if there are any medical issues that you feel you want to mention, but it is not going to make you have medical inadmissibility, you can also point those ones out. And then another thing you can also mention is your academic achievement. So include information about your academic awards, all the honors you received, your graduating GPA, your academic ranking. If you graduated best in your department, it's fine. If you have any extracurricular activities, this is also very important to include. If you've had any leadership experience, anything that is relevant to your academic and professional goals, you can also include this in your letter of explanation. And especially if you are going for research, it's important to also talk about your research experience. So whether you've worked in a lab before, you've done your undergrad thesis, you have any presentations or publication, you can say I have 5 publications, 2 publications are presented in so and so conferences. It's just basically what you will say to them if they ask you those questions one-on-one. So make sure you include all of those ones. And then I've already talked about your language skills, your French and your English proficiency. And then you can also talk about your plan to maintain your health while you are in Canada. Something like you're going to be getting your health insurance, or there's going to be provincial health insurance that's going to be available. This just tell the visa officer exactly what you are going to do. And another thing you can also talk about is while you are studying in Canada, what are some of the things that you are going to do. For example, it might be once I'm studying in Canada, then I've also been offered graduate teaching assistant for those doing research. I don't really talk about any part-time job at the moment, because they don't really like that. They want you to convince them that you will be able to sustain yourself without having to bother, without having to work. You can sustain yourself. And another thing you can also include your plans for continuing your education after completing your program. For example, if you want to seek further employment, that's fine. You can talk about that in your home country. If you're applying for masters, you can say, after completing my masters, I'm coming back home to continue my PhD. You always have to be tied back to home, right? Because that's the way you have to convince them that once you're done, you're going to go back home. And then talk about your professional goals as well. Describe your long-term goals and how studying in Canada will help you to achieve that. If you want to become a professor, it's fine to say that I want to do a PhD, university, because you need a PhD to become a professor in most of the countries, right? And if you want to become, let's say, a data scientist and you're doing masters in data science, it's perfect. So talk about your long-term goal and how you're outline with the specific programs that you are applying for. And they also talk about if you are going to be engaging in any other extracurricular activities and all that while in Canada, volunteering. You know, this is good just to show that you're not only going there for studies. You're going to be involved in adding to the Canadian work, the Canadian community. So you can also talk about that. And then another thing, also talk about what are your plan. Talk about the specific program. This is very important. Why is a program you selected actually more suitable compared to other programs? Why did you specifically how to choose this program, and how is this program different from other kinds of program? And lastly, you can also just mention at the end of the day some of the documents that you've attached to your letter of explanation. It can be your employment status, employment documents, can be your certificate, because you might not have the chance to upload all of those ones in the other part. So your educational certificates, your employment letters, your employment ID, all of maybe any other further business information that wouldn't fit into the funds, you can add all of this. So if you have any specific question, just let me know. I don't have a lot of samples and templates for letter of explanation that I can give to you. So but reach out to me. There's going to be my website on in the pinned comment, or also in the description. So reach out to me if you have any specific question, and I will be able to guide you. Once again, these are not exclusive, but you can actually organize all of these things that are set into probably not more than 5-6 paragraphs. And then definitely I wish you the best in your letter of explanation, and I'm hoping to see you in Canada. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video. If there is any other thing that I've not addressed, if you have any specific question, leave the comment in the comment section. If you haven't liked this video, like this video, and if you haven't subscribed, please do it and subscribe. I'll see you in this video.